Hey everyone! Whoops. Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. These are the second main series entries for Generation 7, and they had a lot of promise at first. Sun and Moon were quite successful games that really hit it off with the story, but of course, there was always room for improvement. Which is where Game Freak likes to come in because, well, they like to do follow-up games. When Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon were announced, everyone was quick to call these sequels, not only because of their names, but we've seen sequels done before. Pokemon Black 2 and Pokemon White 2 were perfect examples of closing games for the DS era, and everyone, including me, were ready to see what Game Freak had in store to close out the 3DS era. However, the creators of the games were quick to clarify that this wasn't a sequel, but an alternate telling of the previous games, which, okay, not sequels, but still sounds promising from the trailers at least. I mean, all the leaders from past organizations were going to make a return, and is that the Battle Factory? At last, it was November 17th of 2017 when my copy arrived at the front door. First glance of the game and everything seems refreshed. Some of the cutscenes are redone, like obtaining your starter, and a few overworld changes, like the first route now has bright and colorful flowers. And now there were a few Pokemon from previous generations that have been added to the games. This was all fine, nothing major, but some changes are nice. There is one thing I do wish they changed though. The first hour of the game. My goodness, one of the things I didn't like in Sun and Moon was how slow the tutorial was. Literally the whole first island was a tutorial, and I do understand it was to help newcomers understand the game. But even they would get bored of all of this. The pacing of all of this was so slow, and they just had to keep it in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. I had no real problem with it in Sun and Moon because it was a new region to me. I don't really mind the wait too much. But when you have to do it all over again in a new game based on the same region, my goodness, it becomes a real task. Welcome, trainers, to So You Wanna Be a Pokemon Master, where here we'll give you all the tips you need to know about being a Pokemon Master without having to play Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. Here we go. Pokemon is a game where you catch Pokemon, train them up, beat opponents using some kind of random move, preferably Explosion, and then you become a champion. See, you don't need any other tutorial, you just graduated Pokemon University. Your diploma's coming in the mail sometime. Moving on from the first island, the pace begins to really pick up. First off, there's a new minigame introduced called Mantine Surfing, which, I'll admit, it actually was pretty fun. It was a unique way to get from island to island, and I played this minigame a lot more times than I thought I would. More trials become available to challenge instead of that one boring one in the tutorial island. However, one thing I truly do respect this game for is the difficulty of some battles, specifically when it came to some of the Totem Pokemon battles in the trials. I genuinely had a tough time beating them, which is great. For years since Pokemon X and Y, I felt like the Pokemon games in the main story were just way too easy to beat. It was hardly a challenge to get through the games. However, in these games, I really did appreciate that there was a bit of struggle to beat the Totem Pokemon. So I do appreciate that. We're pretty much done with the praise. Everything's going to go downhill from here. Story-wise, from Akala Island all the way to Pony Island events, everything's literally the same. Sure, they stick in 2 new characters to introduce the new Ultra Beasts. But that was pretty much it. The adventure felt very similar to Sun and Moon, to the fact that I struggled to continue. They also removed many aspects that made the characters unique in Sun and Moon. One example is Lucamine. She wasn't much of a villain in this game, more like a person who wanted to play hero and failed. Trust me, she's still creepy keeping Pokemon frozen, but still, her ambitions felt just all over the place. This affected even Lily. In the Sun and Moon game, she went through so much development from start to end. Even though she still gets quite a bit of development, many of the special things that she did and the challenges she had to confront were cut out. Lily never had to stand up and confront her mother. She never left to Kanto to get stronger and search for Bill. Continuing on with the story, literally nothing was new until you reached near the end at the altar of Sun or Moon, when things actually started to happen. It would introduce the legendary Pokemon Necrozma along with the super cool Ultra Space location. Now, the Ultra Necrozma battle has to be the best battle in the game because, for the first time going, it was genuinely hard. It might have been because I didn't know what typing or boost it got when I was doing the legendary battle, but still, good job, Game Freak. I'll give you that. You could then catch this legendary on Victory Road, then battle the Elite Four, see the end credits, and put this game in its rightful place. But hold on a second, pal, because there's still the nostalgia. One of the main things people were excited to see was this Rainbow Rocket, which was a Team Rocket basically with a colorful R and past evil team leaders from another dimension. This was fine if you knew who these people were. I liked it when I played through this part, but I wasn't crazy about it. Some of the evil team themes were either okay or worse than the originals, and once it was over, well, that was fun. There are more things you can do once these games are done, but most of these things were already in the past games. Outside of your usual online play, you could do the battle tree, which was far too easy in these games in comparison to Sun and Moon. I could beat the first portion with my eyes closed, whereas in the other games, hacks I tell you. There is the Ultra Space minigame, which was fun for a little while, but then it got old. You could catch legendary Pokemon, but you could catch these same legendaries in Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, and the fact that they showed up here again just makes legendary Pokemon feel less special than back when they were in their proper games. Ultra Beasts, yeah, there are some new ones, but outside of that, it's pretty much the same ones as in Sun and Moon. Overall, I got pretty bored of these games in the post-game because there wasn't really anything new or something that stood out from the games in comparison to the older entries like Emerald, Platinum, and especially Black 2, White 2. So overall, these games just weren't that great. The overall experience of this game, they're decent games if it's your first time playing Pokemon. It's not terrible, like, it's playable and there's some cool moments that happen, and the story isn't completely terrible. However, for returning fans, and especially those who played Sun and Moon, I don't like saying this a lot, but these games definitely felt much more like a cash grab. This was probably the noticeable moment that we no longer really needed third versions. Later on, they would start doing DLCs, however, until then, we think third versions would continue to happen, and this was going to be the unfortunate fate of third versions. So there you go, Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. They're okay, they're decent games, but were they really necessary? Like, there's so much more that could have gone in place of this. Like a Pokemon Z would have continued the saga of Kalos, where it was left in so many questions. But, I mean, I guess it's okay, because they said they were working on a Switch title that would follow this game. So, there's absolutely no way they could possibly mess that, well,